There was nothing else at all in the whole world but football.
Hi guys, and welcome to the Triple F for an episode of Under the Floodlights, where this week we talk all about legendary Arsenal captain Patrick Vieira. Vieira was a legendary French central midfielder who played from 1994 until 2011 for teams such as the Milan teams, Juventus, Man City and of course Arsenal. In that time he won 3 Premier League titles, 5 FA Cups, 3 Serie A's and just a little competition called the World Cup. Not sure if you've heard about it. Taking a trip with me down memory lane to peer back into the Gunners' golden years is lifelong Arsenal fan Simon W. Simon W was a season ticket holder in the mid-90s back in the clock end of Highbury. He moved to the States in 1999, but he remains as fanatic and committed a fan as ever. Now a soccer coach at high school level in Colorado, we talked about why he regards Patrick Vieira as one of the true greats of the game. Thanks again for joining us as Patrick Vieira goes under the floodlights.
I was trying to think, you asked about had I seen Patrick Vieira play, and of course I had. This is without doubt the best in-person Highbury game I've ever been to. So November 96, Sunday afternoon football on Sky. It was dark when the game started because it was 4:00, pissing rain. I remember getting out of Arsenal tube station. And actually I was in the East Terrace that day. I didn't have tickets that day. So actually, I picked up a scalp ticket on the way. Yeah. But the atmosphere, the lights were on, it was pissing rain, it was Spurs, and then Adam scores that goal in the last 5, and then Dennis has that ball. You've seen it. Yeah. Pulls it down, knocks it, bloody hell. And I was in East Terrace, and I've actually only ever sat there once, and the whole place, I thought the whole stadium was gonna break. It was mental. Nice. It was the greatest, and I literally haven't watched that. I haven't watched that since I went to the game, and I'm like, holy crap, good stuff.
Excellent. Yeah,
it's giving me goosebumps actually thinking about it. So good.
I think because I know you kind of asked, off the show, you asked. I think we've kind of been speaking about it a little bit as well. Is just the current state of this Arsenal team at the moment. It's not easy to take, but at the same time, sort of mentioning those lot down the road, it kind of makes it a bit easier seeing how they're absolutely having a mess of it at the moment as well.
It's not, well, after watching that friggin' Amazon special where we watched all about Jose's season and what a lovely man he is. I mean, he's not a lovely man, is he? No. We got shown the shiny, lovely version of Jose. Yeah. No, it does. I've got no problem. I mean, we're in the shit because Stan Kroenke, who's just from up the road here, who owns all the Denver teams, he refuses to really put his hand in his pocket.
Yeah,
I hope that Nigerian businessman who's in the frame can buy the club. Yeah, but I've got no problem accepting the shit show after Wenger, because it was always going to be one. I mean, we got lucky with one. I mean, if you look at the days when I was going a lot, it was the end of the Graham era. It was the Bruce Rioch fiasco. And then it was this 96, 97 when Wenger was about to come in, and it was Pat Rice. But if you think about that, pre-Wenger, it was the Graham era, which I loved. But then, we were a shit show. The 80s were horrible. And so I feel like we're back there. And I've got no problem with Arteta having a project and being allowed latitude. And again, I'm probably overly dramatic about this. But can we not flirt with fucking relegation? I mean, Leeds won yesterday, and we're now 11th.
Yeah,
and I'm now finding myself cheering on Brighton and Newcastle to draw. It's pathetic, isn't it? I'm under no aspirations that we're not going to be attempting again. But can we just not fuck around with 11th and 12th and 13th place?
I think we'll be fine.
It's stressful.
I do think we'll get out of.
We will.
Yeah. There's no way. There's absolutely no way we'll get relegated. I do think that, there was a bit of an exaggeration from most of the fans. But considering the glory years that we've tasted under Wenger, considering the success that we've had in the past, or the recent past anyway, I think a lot of fans have been spoiled by that. And, just kind
Absolutely.
of it's not a terrible, I suppose, by sort of the standards of most other football clubs, it's not a complete disaster, but considering Arsenal's recent success, it is a bit of a disaster at the moment. It is hard to fathom what's going on. But
looking up at Villa, Everton, at one point Wolves, Leicester, and fucking West Ham. Seriously? I don't know what annoys me more, the fact that Leicester are now a legitimate Champions League team, or the fact that West Ham, what the hell is that about? Anyway, the fact that Villa and Wolves have both done the double over us. What is that shit? What is that shit? I mean, Wenger must be laughing. Wenger must be sitting there going, boys, I left you a decent club. But
speaking of the glory years, I think there's no better sort of representation or an icon essentially that sort of embodies those golden days as much as Patrick Vieira.
Yeah, I mean, I think as a midfield general, I don't think there's anyone finer. I think the fact that he was whisked away by Juventus, and the fact that he immediately represented France. I mean, we bought him as an injured player. We bought him, I think, in July or August of '96, and I remember the weight. I remember seeing pictures of him, this long, gangly fellow who looked kind of thin.
Yeah.
And we thought, well, that's great, but clearly Milan were a great team at that point. Clearly Milan don't want him, and they must know what they're talking about. And then, but I wrote down a few notes of just, smooth. I mean, just watching him glide across the turf. And then when he hit the tackle, just as hard as nails. The pressures that he put in, I mean, he transformed our midfield. If you look at the midfield we had before, if you look at the George Graham midfield, with, Thomas sitting, Paul Davis and Roca pulling the strings. And then a few years later, we had David Hillier and John Jensen. I mean, it was shocking and it was embarrassing. And then we were desperate for someone who could not only be the hard man, but move the ball. Move the ball. I mean, Ray Parlour, the run for Pele, love him, but he was never going to set the place alight. He was never going to be the player to dominate. A great second fiddle to Vieira at certain times. But Paddy, just the communication. I remember watching him many, many times when poor man was stuck with Parlour, moving Parlour around. Like, get behind me, I'm going. And just a little nod and a wink. And they had a pretty decent communication going. But one of the hardest players you will ever find. There are many videos online, actually, of there's one of essentially tunnel exchanges between Roy Keane and Patrick Vieira. And it's terrifying.
Yeah.
Finally, we had someone who could stand up to the United team of that point, which is someone who could stand up in the midfield and be counted and push around Roy Keane. Yeah. That's why I think he's so incredible. He was a moment when Arsenal fans and the whole league went, oi, oi, they've got someone in there now who can really bite. Yeah. And that was him.
Did you know much about him before he signed for Arsenal?
No, I didn't. I mean, other than we needed someone, and it was another one of these. Well, here's the thing: it was another one of these speculative transfers because I think Remy Gard came at the same time.
Yeah, that's right.
He was clearly an older French player that Wenger knew, and Wenger had experience with. And we thought, well, this guy Vieira, he's younger and he's coming from Milan. Double-edged sword from Milan, great team, but what do they know that we don't? Why they let him go? I think he played like 2 games for them as a substitute. The fact we bought him injured, we're like, Jesus. But no, I didn't know much about him. And I knew that he was sort of on the cusp as a younger player of the French squad, but out of like the 18s or the 21s or something. But no, he was pretty much an unknown quantity.
Do you think that just kind of added to the confusion and the panic almost from the Arsenal fans, and the fact that you're getting this new manager, he's coming in, who the hell is Arsene? Like, Arsene who? That was, all over the papers at the time. And then the best, essentially, this key player that he's bringing in with him as well is also another unknown. It must have been quite frustrating as a gunner at the time.
Yeah, and again, injured. The whole Wenger thing was Okay, well, he had time at Monaco. They're not bad, but at least we know Monaco. And then trying to learn who Grampus 8 were from Nagoya from the J League. I'm like, really? But David Dean. Looking back on it, I guess it was all really David Dean. I mean, what a masterstroke.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was definitely that summer of thinking, who is this guy? But I remember reading at the time that Vieira actually, one of the reasons why he came was because Wenger was coming in.
Yeah.
Which gives you now we see the quality of Vieira. Now we see how significant that was. And in fact, that was really the harbinger of things to come. The fact that, players came in after that. I mean, Henry, obviously we got Henry purely because of Wenger.
Yeah.
And look how that worked out.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot of signings, especially like you say with Henry, but sort of more specifically with Vieira as well, where it kind of makes us realise as fans that we're not privy to what managers know. We're not privy to the expertise and the knowledge that these managers know. Because as you were saying, I bet hundreds, probably even yourself at the time, thousands of fans were saying, why the hell are we getting this player in? What does he offer? And obviously he proved millions of people wrong.
Well, the good thing at the time was I think it was like under 4 million. It's like 3.5 million. And so it wasn't as if I know that the fan base we really weren't pinning our hopes on this guy.
No.
Because we had a midfield and we had Parler who was working, and again, Hillier and Jensen. I mean, John Jensen, who came with, I don't know if you remember, but they won, Denmark came off the beach to win the European Championships.
Yeah.
And he didn't score. I don't think he ever scored a goal for Arsenal. But this guy came in as a dedicated, sitting, holding midfield hard man.
Yeah.
And he was quite functional, but he was no more than that. And so there was this need for a lift. But I don't remember people being that deflated about, or that concerned about what Vieira was going to bring. I just think he was an unknown. Like, this might be good, and it's Milan, so let's give it the benefit of the doubt. But but I got to tell you though, I was there the night. It was sometime September of '96, and it was a Monday night game, Sheffield Wednesday, and I think Parler went off about 35, 45 minutes in.
Mm-hmm.
I remember I was in the clock end, and Arsenal were playing towards the clock end, and this gangly kid comes on. Oh, this is the new kid. Let's see. About a minute in, I can't remember who he dispossessed. He absolutely crashed whichever Wednesday midfielder right around the center spot. Looked up, hit a ball, and it hit Ian Wright on the inside of his outside foot, about 35 yards. And we all looked up and went, "Holy shit, we have a player! We have a player." Not only has he won the ball in a place where we wouldn't normally win it, but look at that distribution. And then from then we went on and won the game 4-1, and it was a great night. Yeah. Another night where it was, it was the floodlights, it was raining, and it was just at the end of the game, everyone was like, "Okay, we've seen something special tonight."
Yeah.
And he went on from there, because he came on and it was like, well, what can we expect? Probably nothing. Is he going to last long? And suddenly within 2 minutes, it was tackle, the pass, holy mackerel.
Wow.
And he pretty much run the game. And in fact, you can find that there's a YouTube video of that. It's not cut for his highlights, but you can just see him gliding around the midfield, and it looks as though he's not only is 100% fit, it looks like he's been there for 5 years.
Yeah,
masterful.
That was definitely one of the incredible things about him. Do you think he benefited from sort of coming off of the wave of the George Graham era, having the likes of Adams there, having the likes of Steve Bold, these Keown, these just incredible warriors, essentially, what they were, these absolute hard men around him. Do you think that was something that sort of helped him in a way?
Yeah, I think two things. I think it helped him, and I also think he was the crowning piece in that. I don't think Michael Thomas, much as we love Mickey Thomas for the goal at Anfield and all that, I don't think Thomas was, you could even compare Thomas to Vieira. I feel like Vieira was almost Paul Davis and Michael Thomas rolled into one. And I think sitting in front of that back four with Seaman was absolutely, sitting in the armchair. But I think what we didn't have, getting back to current day, which I hope Thomas Partey can bring, what we didn't have was a player to get a very simple ball from Adams or Keown or Bold and move it. Either drive himself or move it 5 yards, get it out of his feet and knock it to someone. And Vieira provided that. So I think he benefited from that. And I also think he was the piece that Wenger was probably looking for well, any Arsenal coach would have been, but I think he was the piece that Arsenal needed in front of that fabulous back four. And I think also he meant that we didn't waste the final few years of that back four.
Yeah.
I think he provided cover that the aging legs of a Bold and an Adams and a Keown needed, because I know he provided that extra insurance policy, just snarling and growling in front of them.
Using as little or as less words as possible, are you able to sort of describe what kind of player he was?
A legitimate hard man.
Yeah.
And a legitimate and a truly proud captain of the club.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of a player, I think honestly, for people who understand the context, I think what I've just come up with off the top of my head, which sounded quite good, was actually the Thomas and Davis rolled into one.
Yeah.
Every bit of scrap that Mickey Thomas gave,
mm-hmm.
and then every bit of lengthy passing and creativity that Paul Davis also had. So I would say, if you think of people want to think of those two Arsenal greats in those teams,
mm-hmm.
throw those two players together.
Yeah.
That was the man. And again, someone who could stand up and look Roy Keane in the eye, or throw him a little headbutt or something, and say, you know what, we're here. I mean, so many of those games where we won at Old Trafford against United.
Yeah.
We took down. There was that game in the Invincible season, the 0-0, where we just got out of it after that Van Nistelrooy penalty. But there was that game where he got sent off, and he got sent off for standing up to Roy Keane and standing up to the midfield. I think.
Yeah.
A legitimate hard man, and honestly, everything that Arsenal needed.
In terms of the best sort of partner for him in midfield, Petit, Gilberto Silva, Fabregas, Edu, is there anybody that you can think of who was his best partner?
I think without doubt in terms of the success, and I think on the results of the field, combination of Petit or Gilberto.
Yeah.
I mean, there was so much unstated communication between those two. As I said, when he was playing with Parlo, I think Parlo was a little bit too eager to get ahead and get up and move himself. And I think Vieira, I witnessed it, Vieira having to just, through gestures and through eye contact, get him to stay and sit and be more disciplined. But I think Petit and Vieira, honestly, if we hadn't had Vieira, I think we'd have been having a very similar conversation about Petit.
Yeah.
I think to have those two together was just an embarrassment of riches. And I think Petit, obviously those guys ended up running the mid. I'm pretty sure they won the World Cup together for France.
Yeah, no, they did.
Sitting as a two, kind of like Thuram and the other guy for France recently. But those guys, I think those guys were equally as hard, equally as tough. I sensed that Vieira had the bigger personality on the field, but every time Petit would make it so much as 2 steps forward, Vieira would just very quietly, without saying anything, just sit and hold, and vice versa. And I think for Gilberto too, Gilberto and he were more or less the same player.
Yeah.
And I think, Edu, I feel like Edu allowed, or not allowed, but forced Vieira to have to sit a lot more. I feel like Edu was far more the roamer and the 20, 30-yard passing person. I think he took a bit of Vieira's creativity away from him because they couldn't both do it.
Yeah.
Fabregas wanted to be the starlet who was running the show and being the creative force.
Yeah.
So I think the best place for Vieira was when he could play that 1-2 with Gilberto and with Petit.
Yeah, it was almost like a pivot, really, wasn't it? Where they kind of
they knew exactly what the other was doing, and it got so instinctive that it was just seamless, and it was fabulous to watch. You knew the moment Vieira would take 1, 2, 3 steps, get the ball out of his feet and pass, you knew that Petit had already slid in behind him.
Yeah, you've kind of mentioned his name already, Thomas Partey, and I suppose most fans would agree and say that he possibly is the closest thing to Patrick Vieira that Arsenal have had since the Frenchman left the club. But perhaps there is a case of looking at getting a similar player to the likes of Gilberto Silva or to the likes of Petit that can do the similar sort of thing, and maybe that's key to our sort of success in the future.
Yeah, I think, I mean, looking at the midfield, I mean, I think we finally abandoned Joe Willock as someone who can play in there. But if we look at our midfielders now, if we look at between Xhaka and Partey and El Neni, and thank God for him coming back. I mean, the man's a revelation compared to what we thought we were going to get. I still think our best combination, as was at United a couple months ago, I do think our best combination is El Neni and Partey.
Yeah,
because I can see that El Neni is that no one's going to have that intuitive communication yet because Partey is new. But El Neni, I think El Neni naturally wants to sit. And I think Xhaka has this. I mean, he can. I do like Granit Xhaka. He's not quite been the all-dominating force, but I think he's solid. Xhaka, I think, wants to pass and move up as a little bit too much. I think having watched all these videos of Partey at Madrid, the best parts of his game is the smooth, very Vieira-like, effortless moving the ball and then taking it forward and then passing. And I think we need to give him the opportunity to do everything. And I think El Neni's the one who's going to be the loyal, lieutenant there sitting behind him.
Yeah, I think as well, El Neni just sort of offers a bit more athleticism than what Granit Xhaka will as well, and that's just kind of being that dynamic kind of player that is needed to sort of sweep up for Partey when he roams forward and does the Vieira thing and hopefully smashes in a banger. That's one thing that I'm hoping from Partey soon as well is seeing that sort of Vieira-esque banger going in from a distance, because that's something that it didn't happen too often with Vieira, but now and then it made a highlight reel and it was just a thing of beauty to see.
Yeah, I think Partey is. I couldn't be more excited about Partey. I mean, the boy's got to be. He's got to stay on the field though. Injuries is a bit of a concern, but I think he's on a 5-year deal, which is nice. So I think by the end of this shocking wasted season, hopefully he'll be able to be in better shape for the league. But there was a great quote I read. I think it was in the Guardian about that United game, the 1-0 in early November, about how he was a lion amongst hyenas that day. And that's exactly what he is. He's got the Vieira presence. He needs to create that presence in our league. And a lot of people would say that La Liga is a lot less physical. And perhaps that's what we're seeing. Perhaps we're seeing him just make that transition. And I think we've talked, obviously been a lot of talk about Hossein Mawar. I'm not sure. I don't think we're ever going to get him. And I think if we can play a midfield of Partey and either Xhaka or El Neni, and I'm thinking the boy Odegaard's, he may well stick around, but either Smith Rowe or Odegaard in front, that's fabulous.
Yeah.
I think Partey is the man that we needed in midfield, like the man.
Yeah.
He's that presence, and I can't wait to see him. I hope he can put some run of games together. He might even play tomorrow, actually, against Benfica. I believe he's Arteta said he's going to travel, and if he wants to play, if he feels good, he's going to play, which would be great.
Yeah, there are some good sort of signs and chances that he might play tomorrow. I just hope he's not sort of rushed back too soon, because that was essentially that was a bit of an issue in some of the previous games that he's played. But do you think in a way it's almost that there's a kind of similarity in the sense that Wenger more or less built the team around Vieira sort of when he first came in? Is it now a sort of case where Arteta needs to sort of take that and essentially build the team around Partey?
100%. Yeah, I think I know. I mean, I think the reports that were coming out with Edu, with the Cronkies, and with Arteta was that this guy was the non-negotiable between. We had a lot of conversation all summer about Aouar and Partey, and it seemed to me that Partey was sitting there. There wasn't a lot of, there was no negotiation needed, right? Because all you had to do was pay the release clause. I got the sense that the money was sitting there and they were testing the Aouar market. I thought that was wrong. I didn't think we needed Aouar, frankly. No. Because, who knows what Ozil was going to do. But I think that the Partey was the non-negotiable with Arteta. Yeah, I completely agree. I think now with, I thought it was a very productive summer. And that's why I'm so deflated about where we are. I mean, I think the emergence of Pablo Mari, who clearly is a player and can come in and do the job. Rob Holding, in terms of the spine. Gabriel, I thought was a great signing. I'm a great believer in Ben Leno. I think he's a great shot stopper, and his feet could be a bit better. But in terms of the spine, I think the missing piece was that Vieira-like animal in midfield, and he's a beast, and he's the man. And I think we needed that person who was going to intimidate and be everywhere. and also glide. I'm sure that someone on YouTube has done a comparison video of Vieira running and Partey running, because they just seem to get somewhere with no effort.
Yeah,
he sort of, for a big man, he skips along the turf, and it's great to see.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if there is one out there on YouTube. How many goals have you seen Patrick score? I mean, have you?
I've seen a few. I remember, I was just thinking the other day, I remember there was one against Derby. Well, they're all the same goal in my mind. The ones that stand out, they're all the same goal. He's doing what we call here when we coach the kids, taking out the trash. It's a corner, and he's come up to the top of the box.
Yeah.
And he's there to prevent the ball popping out too fast. Plus, he's there for any ball that comes out to be put right back. And so he scores these amazing goals. There's one against Derby that he scored. It was just ridiculous. One against Everton the same season. He got one against United at home as well. Those are the goals, the ones that stand out, the ones that are just this absolute pile driver of a ball sent back after a corner. And it's usually top corner, and everyone just looks and goes, holy crap. Those are the goals, yeah. And again, he saved his goals for big moments. And I think just the impact of those goals, they're so powerful, and they really kind of cement his presence in the team. His aura was that idea of power, strength.
Yeah.
They weren't Eddie Nketiah kind of tappings.
No. But what would you say was the best goal that you ever saw live? Were all of those goals did you see them live?
They were all live. Yeah, I would think probably the United one. It was a home game. It was like 97, 98. They were wearing blue. And it was just another one of those where the ball, it was actually top right of the box. Ball came back, and he just blasted it through a set of players.
Was that the one where it was a bit of an in-swinger?
Yes, that's right.
Into the top corner. Yeah.
Absolutely. Went past players. Goalie was probably unsighted. Sorry for him, but just all those goals that were just bangers past the goalkeeper. Yeah.
Yeah. It's been a while.
Again, that was a very, again, just to contextualize for people who are a bit younger, maybe, that was a very good United team. That was when Fergie's team were absolutely top of the game. It was the Van Nistelrooys and the Keanes and the Schmeichels, and they needed to be put in their box, and he did it regularly.
Yeah. One of the best Arsenal captains we've ever had.
Without a doubt. I mean, the moment he arrived at the club, it was obvious he was going to be captain. He had such integrity, and as a player, he would never ask people to do things he wouldn't do, did all the dirty work. An inspirational leader. Absolutely. I think another way to think about this is if he had been playing 5 to 10 years earlier, we have to ask ourselves the question between he and Adams, who would have been captain? I don't know. I don't know if George Graham wouldn't have picked him.
No.
And I think that's why, again, I think that team that had Adams and the back four, and then Vieira playing in front, think of the leadership that you had down the middle of the team.
Yeah.
Between Adams, Bold, Keown, potentially, Seaman, Vieira. What an amazing group when you were in a game.
Yeah.
Look around and say, right, boys, now we go. And also with Vieira, perhaps less of that, but, the next time Roy Keane let the ball go, just clattering it. I think he was a great setting, and a captain that definitely led by example more than probably was vocal.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the greatest compliment is, seriously, who would George Graham have picked? I think he would have gone with Vieira.
Yeah.
Probably sacrilege to many Arsenal fans. I think Tony Adams would have been second choice, but I think he would. Yeah.
Yeah. Or maybe he would have been part of this sort of modern captaincy group that we have nowadays. Right. Out of here.
The leadership group. I remember that when Emery got the leadership group.
Yeah. What a load of bollocks that is.
Yeah, exactly.
I suppose we've made the sort of comparisons with Partey, but are there any other players that you can think of that you could sort of make comparisons to Patrick Vieira?
Yeah, but I don't. I think they want to be. I don't think they're that good.
No,
I think in the league right now, I think Wijnaldum, the lad from Liverpool, I think he's got the same length. He's got the same power. And I also think the poor old Paul Pogba.
I was going to ask you about Pogba.
For his life wants to be Patrick Vieira. and he's not. And
No.
he's not. He goes missing. He goes missing. All the time.
Maybe he has the similar sort of offensive capabilities, but definitely doesn't have the anywhere near the defensive capabilities of Vieira.
Yeah, I don't think Paul Pogba frankly knows what hard work is. I think he's all about, he wants to be given the ball and he wants to take it forward. So yeah, the last game we played against United, the 0-0 draw a few weeks ago, he was anonymous.
Yeah.
Absolutely anonymous. And even the game we played at Old Trafford, the 1-0 in November, I wasn't sure he's playing.
Yeah.
But I think he's definitely followed in the minds of many people in terms of the French team. He's definitely followed in those footsteps. But I would also put Vieira next to people like Lilian Thuram for France, who I guess he was the era before. Maybe it was the same era, but Lilian Thuram I thought was amazing for France. Sami Khedira, when Sami Khedira was running the show for Germany, I'd put him in the absolute top 4 or 5 holding midfield players throughout the history of the game.
Yeah.
Because I think one could look back to like a Beckenbauer or someone like that, but I think he had Beckenbauer type qualities.
Yeah.
But there's no one. I don't think there's anyone right now who's as good.
No.
But Partey, I think Partey has the goods though. I think if Partey in 2 years we could be saying this is the second coming, and who knows, Patrick could be the manager at that point.
That's a good segue on to the next question. I like that a lot, mate. I like that a lot. So thoughts on him as a manager?
I don't know yet. I mean, I think it's very attractive to think of him wearing the blue blazer with the cannon on it. I think it's very nice as well to think of Henry. Hasn't Henry taken a job at Bournemouth or something?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. I think that, actually, just speaking about that Bournemouth one specifically, because Vieira was actually linked to that at the same time, and the media sort of framed it as Vieira versus Henry for the Bournemouth job. But I was quite surprised that they went for Henry. I think Vieira, considering how well he did at because he was in America, wasn't he? He did okay there.
He was in New York FC, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I think he did relatively okay there. And I think he was unfairly sacked at Nice. I think, to be honest, his time at Nice, he was doing okay. So I was a bit surprised when they went for Henry, because Henry's sort of managerial record doesn't really excite me that much. It doesn't really.
I wouldn't even call it that. I think Henry's still writing his name. Yeah. Vieira is significantly better placed to take over the club, but I don't think either of them are ready to step in. I mean, I'm glad that Vieira managed to get away from the Man City system though. Because he was obviously a player. He was obviously on the coaching staff there for a while, and then of course they own the New York FC club, and so he was then put there to improve himself. And I'm glad they didn't immediately take him back. But so you said he's been fired by Nice. That happened recently. I thought he was still the manager then. So where's he now?
He's got nothing to do.
Okay. I was under the impression that I was about to give him big props for taking in Saliba and trying to really help, because Saliba's starting down there. He's playing every game. All right, well, fair enough. Yeah, so I think Vieira has to go to a club either in Bundesliga or Liga.
Do you know what? Actually, before we go on to this, because it's given me an idea. One of the sort of topics that I want to bring up tomorrow, I've got a different show, and Neil Lennon has just been sacked at Celtic. And in terms of who the next manager could be, I think I was talking about Andre Villas-Boas, Eddie Howe, that is, obviously from the Bournemouth role. I think Patrick Vieira would be an absolutely brilliant fit for Celtic. I think
he could, but I think I'm not. I'd struggle to tell you why if I was the one who wanted to appoint him. I would struggle to put out his CV and say there's a body of work.
I mean, given the work at New York, given the work at Nice, he was there for a couple of seasons. His first season, he got them out of relegation, because I think they were sort of in and thereabouts in sort of relegation. He ended up that season sort of mid-table. The following season, they struggled because they sold so many players, and he kept them sort of mid-table again. I do think, maybe there's no trophies to sort of show from it, but given the right backing, given the right sort of coaching staff and everything like that, I think he can do a good job. And I think at Celtic, it's the sort of level of competition around in the SPL that I think a manager such as Vieira could sort of flourish from. And maybe I'm foolish to sort of think that. Maybe, if he does take the role and it sort of blows up in his face, I'll apologise. But there's just something kind of romantic about that pairing for me.
Yeah, and it could be more romantic. I mean, it wasn't for the incessant chirping of the media. It would be fabulous at some point to take him on at the club at Arsenal, so he could be there. But of course, you can imagine all the headlines.
Yeah.
Imagine Arteta feeling about that. But yeah, I think Vieira is someone who the club would welcome, or the fans would welcome back. But perhaps coaching's moved on to the point where you do need more of a CV and a body of work.
Yeah, no, definitely.
I mean, you look at retreads like Ancelotti, I'm really surprised that he's taking Everton to where he has. People like Sarri, who are just sort of the retreads. I think it's safer to go for one of those. And I think Arsenal I'm sure Arteta will work out, but I think Arsenal have taken a huge risk. Let's remember, they weren't prepared to make immediately post Wenger, appointing Arteta.
Yeah.
Who frankly has precious little experience. Okay, he was Pep's right-hand man for a few years.
Yeah.
He wasn't the governor, he wasn't the boss. So I think Vieira might be the same as that for some clubs. I think if he's going to get a job anywhere at this point, it would be more likely to be us because of the history.
Yeah.
But I would love to see him. I'd love to see him go to the Championship and do a Huddersfield or someone, or a Brentford, be the manager down there and really carve out something that is not, I used to play for this club.
Yeah.
I honestly don't want him or Henry to be anywhere near the biggest job in football until they've proven they can do it. The romantic attachment is not enough for me.
No. I completely agree. I think, I think if Patrick Vieira was to be sort of linked to the Arsenal role, it has to be with the stepping stone of, say, the Championship or in Scotland, because, that's essentially where managers cut their teeth. And I think that's where, in a way, Steven Gerrard is kind of in that stepping stone period right now at Rangers, and it's working out brilliantly. So maybe that's an option for Patrick, if they ever sort of come to that conclusion. But I mean,
I would hate for Patrick Vieira to become the second coming of Frank Lampard at Chelsea, because that was always going to be a challenge for old Frankie boy.
Yeah.
Especially with the very quick trigger finger that Abramovich has. I don't think we do that. But I wouldn't want Vieira. I don't want anyone to be rushed. Like, we can't afford another lost season.
No.
Apart from getting to the Europa final, which, let's not talk about that. But Emery's time was largely wasted.
Yeah.
And I wish in some ways the club had the cojones to appoint Arteta, because we wouldn't be 2 years behind.
No. But, I'm willing to be patient. I'm willing to at least give it to the end of this season. I've written this one off as a bit of a shit show. And then next season, that's the crunch one for me. If Arteta can't improve on this season, if there's just signs of it being another shit show, I think we have to cut loose. But I don't know. There are sort of a lot of promising signs there, as long as we get the recruitment correct as well. I have faith that it's, we're going to go up from there.